Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about body acceptance and the way that I portray myself in my self-portraits. In this video, I'll be chatting a bit about my experiences with weight, body positivity, acceptance, as well as how that journey has meshed with my illustrations over time. There's a little bit of talk about body shaming, eating disorders, and self-depreciation in this video. It's pretty gentle, but if it's a particularly upsetting topic for you, you might want to skim this video over and check out my other stuff instead. This video wasn't really in my grand video plan, but it came to be thanks to a conversation I had recently with a friend who had noticed something in the illustrations that I make of myself. Somewhat recently, I've been starting to change my outfits and appearance to match my look in my illustrations, but I haven't really been updating my weight. This includes in a recent video I made where I referenced my weight loss specifically, but still drew myself the same way I've always drawn myself. This led to a pretty long conversation about body image, body positivity, body acceptance, as well as how people portray their body type in their art when they're drawing themselves. It was a pretty thought-provoking conversation, and I wanted to chat a little bit about it and at the same time try to draw myself the way that I have for the past 7 years or so, and also do my best to portray the way that I think I'm starting to look now. As such, this is also the video debut of my very first home haircut and my first undercut, which I also did to myself at home. I did a good job though, looking pretty fresh. I'm a firm believer in body positivity, body acceptance, and fat acceptance. All bodies are good bodies. If you are skinny, fat, average size, disabled, able-bodied, queer, non-binary, transgender, intersex, or defined in any number of other different ways, your body is beautiful, valid, and good. I have been a firm believer in this for years as it pertains to everyone around me, but as someone who's been overweight most of my adult life, it's admittedly been a tough one to teach myself. So this is the hard bit. Up to 2013 or so, I was in a long-term relationship that was pretty toxic. I'll spare the details, but one of the many negative aspects was urges made to feel bad about my body and the feeling that I wasn't trying hard enough. I really grew to hate myself in the body that I had, even though I actually wasn't as overweight as I was more recently. I would binge eat out of stress and hatred for who I was. I would make terrible jokes about myself to others in a sordid attempt to feel more comfortable about myself. It wasn't a good time in my life. I thankfully had good friends and loved ones in that time who helped to affirm me and the body that I was in, which I'm sure kept me safe from going down a dark hole, but it took a long time to be okay with who I was after that. Over time, thankfully, I have found healthier relationships and surrounded myself with more positive people. I began to eat better. I began to get more active just to treat my body better. My weight mostly stayed put, but embracing my body as it was and making simple goals for myself and for my health was working for me. So I stuck with it and grew more confident, despite being basically in the same body I had always been in. Sometime in 2014 or so, about a year after I got out of that bad relationship, I started drawing myself as a larger person for the first time, which better reflected how I looked in real life. I began replacing social media icons on my illustration page with those images. I would post regular illustrations of myself as a larger person, and perhaps my past was sneaking back into my thoughts, but I firmly expected insults and slurs, or even just like underhanded comments about how I was portraying myself, but they never came. The immediate response by my followers was astoundingly positive. My work was being shared around more, I gained more audience and followers almost immediately. Truthfully, I was overwhelmed by the experience and I didn't really know what to make of it. Given my past and how I was taught to deal with my weight, this was new to me, and as such, I continued to draw myself as a larger person. I began to start accepting it, and I knew that it also inspired confidence and body acceptance in others, which made me really happy. And so it went, and all was well. And then this year, 2020, we all know COVID-19 happened, pandemic happened, and starting in March, we were in lockdown. For a lot of folks, the pandemic and the resulting stay-home protocols have not been the best thing for mental or physical health. It's hard to motivate yourself to get up and do things when the local government is essentially telling you not to unless you absolutely have to. So I'm one of many people who's now working from home. And even though things have opened up a bit more, I'm not going out unless I have to. But I've been trying to be proactive in building habits to keep my fitness up. Something I started right away was replacing my daily commute with 2 30-minute walks a day with my dog, and I chose to maintain my weekly dietary habits that I had started, which include eating the same healthy meals for breakfast and lunch on work days, saving drinking any alcohol or having any sort of snacks for the weekend, that kind of thing. But the biggest difference was that I suddenly wasn't going out to eat and drink, like ever. I also wasn't really ordering takeout. I think I've ordered takeout a total of 3 times since this happened. And it turns out, I guess that was the biggest factor in maintaining my weight, because since the whole pandemic lockdown in March, I've dropped 30 to 35 pounds, which is my biggest loss ever. My clothes aren't fitting well, especially in my waist and my thighs. Some of my constant health problems have vanished. I have a lot more energy. It's a really good feeling, I'm not gonna lie. Now, all of that backstory, just to bring me back with the conversation I had with my friend. Why was I drawing myself with new clothes, new hair color, things that have changed about myself, but still drawing myself the same size? The weight loss is relatively prominent. I should be reflecting that in my portrayal of myself, right? So it was and still is a really hard question to process for me. I thought about it a long time after we had our initial chat. And firstly, I guess, I'm still big. I'm not a small person. I don't think I ever will be. I'm not a skinny person. I'm built stout and sturdy. I have a large chest. Thank you, genetics. And I've always had a thick torso and just been really sturdily built. To draw myself smaller just seems weird to me in the first place because I'm not small. I'm not a small person. I'm built strong. Secondly is that honestly, I often feel like I look exactly the same. I see the non-scale differences, as I talked about before, and I feel the changes. I know they're there. I know they're happening. But that mental portrayal of myself isn't there yet. When you're overweight for a long time, it's how you learn to view yourself. Makes sense? You can look in a mirror and your eyes will see something entirely different than what someone else might see. If you've gone through a significant change, or if you want to see something that you're not seeing, your mirror will lie to you. It happens to tons of different people, anyone and everyone, not just those who are overweight. It took a lot of work and mental acuity to accept the person I saw in the mirror, and now that I'm making these changes, it's hard to turn that thinking in the other direction. Thirdly, I admit that I absorbed the response I received by drawing myself larger. I liked that I was helping people with portraying myself in that way and accepting my body the way it was. And now that I'm losing weight, of course, I'm getting compliments, which is really nice, but also the comments I'm receiving about my weight loss are conflicting with the idea that I was finally starting to build in my head about, being overweight and being fat being okay. It's no secret that you're lauded with praise when you lose weight. If you're fat, losing weight is ideal. Losing weight is the goal. Losing weight is what you should be doing. And in my opinion, that's a toxic mentality that our society holds strong. And it's surprising to me how painful it is to hear the compliments. It's a silly thing because I am proud of the work I've done and I am proud of the results I'm seeing, but to hear it almost devalidates how I felt before. It's a weird mental process. I don't really know how to explain it. I'm not very good at these things. It's not to say you shouldn't give compliments to someone who's been working hard on improving themselves, of course. It is nice to hear. But comments that equate losing weight with looking good is profoundly negative and can be quite damaging. So, myself included, I think we all as a society need to be more aware of that. So anyway, that's why it's been hard to accept drawing myself in a new way, I guess. Throughout this speed paint, you might have noticed that I redrew portions of myself in the new version quite a bit, like my chest, my torso, my legs, the parts where I'm trying to reflect the weight I've lost. It's hard to do. I even got up a few times and glanced at myself in a full-length mirror, and as kind of related to what I mentioned before, that kind of did the opposite of helping because I still see the old me in that mirror. It's interesting and disconcerting to observe, really. Looking back at old artwork, sometimes the way I drew myself changed pretty wildly, even when my weight stayed the same, which I found really interesting. I'd often draw myself based on how I was feeling that day. In some of my more emotional pieces, I've drawn myself very small, a bit more slender, maybe just more vulnerable looking, whereas my more positive pieces, I'm happily drawing myself round, stout, and bright, and yeah, consistency be damned, I guess, because emotions rule the day as far as my self-portraits are concerned. Anyway, this video kind of goes off on some tangents, I admit. It's less concrete, less scripted than some of my other videos. I just wanted to talk out some experiences and feelings about the subject of body acceptance and how it relates to how I portray myself in my art. There's obviously a whole whack of subtopics about this that I won't really be going into here, but are equally important. Discussing weight loss culture, diet culture, reverse body shaming, the big divide and body positivity movement, so much more. There's a lot to talk about on this topic, and it's worth looking up some of these topics as a means of educating ourselves. The journey to accepting and loving your body is an important one, but also a complex one that I'm definitely still working out for myself. I don't have the answers, but I hope that by sharing a bit of my thoughts, that someone out there will realize that they aren't alone, that all bodies are good bodies, whether we are fat, skinny, average, or any other variation, that we are all valid and worthy of love. So what about you? Talk to me. How do you feel about artists drawing themselves authentically? If you're an artist yourself, do you feel that you portray yourself in a way that reflects how you look in real life? Or is your portrayal different in some way? I'd love to hear about it in the comments if you're comfortable doing so. There are no wrong answers, and there are no wrong ways to see yourself and to draw yourself. All bodies are good bodies, either in real life or in art, mine included. So here's the finished piece. I really enjoyed making this, actually. It gave me a push to think about the ways that I portray myself and how others might perceive it, and it was a pretty enjoyable journey to draw the two variations of a self-portrait. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I welcome your comments and suggestions for future videos, and invite you to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you can see my future content. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll see you in the next video.